What's going on? So I have an opportunity here to share my testimony with you guys. So I'm gonna do that now. Um, I almost want to call this kind of a reverse testimony because unfortunately, I'm sorry to say, I went the other direction where I started out good and ended up not so good. But I think even through that, there's a testimony. I think there's an assumption when we go into testimonies that it starts out bad and then Jesus saves you and everything's great. Um, and that's not everyone's story. And I think part of what I want to do as an artist is come at things from the angle of still being in it, of not having been delivered yet, not having gotten out of that yet, but still in the mires and still fighting for that faith, still fighting to be better, to get better, to be closer to God, to be better for people. So I'm trying not to be emotional, trying not to get weird, but when I do post things that are emotional, when I do post things that are difficult to hear, when I do post about my struggles or things that I've done wrong, it's not so that a bunch of people will comment and message me and be like, "Oh, poor baby, are you okay?" It's more just because I think when we put artists and pastors and people that we see on stages on a pedestal, and we assume, oh, they must be perfect people, and then it's so disappointing when we learn that they're human just like us. It was for me, definitely getting into the Christian hip hop industry. And I don't want to be that type of artist. I want to help people, not put me on a pedestal, I guess. I want to help people who become my fans see me as human from the get go. And see that, yeah, it's okay to not be okay. That I'm not perfect either, but we're still working on this together. So, with that little spiel, let's get into it. Um, yeah, my testimony wasn't never very interesting. Whenever, on the rare occasion, whenever people were like, let's share our testimonies, I was like, I don't really feel like I have anything that's life changing. Don't really feel like anyone is going to be like changed or be like, wow, that's amazing. Like, she was saved from drugs or all this other stuff. It's like, nah, like, I grew up in a Christian home. Um, my parents are both Christians, very loving. I was adopted, um, which was very confusing to people around me who were like, why are your parents a different color than you? And I'm like, well, I was adopted. They never hid that from us. Like, that was never something that I had to, like, discover, like, you're adopted. No, it was just, like, I've always known. And I think it's amazing, personally. Um, yeah, I was adopted into a Christian home. I first accepted Christ when I was 4 years old. Um, Reaffirmed my faith when I was, I think, 11. But I think when it really became real for me was when I was 14, and that's when I got baptized, and my parents got me a Bible with my name engraved on it. I still have that Bible. It's my, it's one of my prized possessions, I would say. Um, and I lived probably, I would say, the typical Christian girl life, like the stereotypical, not a ton of problems, I would say, at least starting out. Did all the church stuff. A huge chunk of my life when I was younger was dedicated to being at church and doing church things. Whether it be singing or being in Awana or whatever. I was worship leader for I was in the worship band since I was 14 onward, and then the last year I was worship leader. There we go. There's the accurate story. Um, and things were just kind of floating along. And then we started having problems with someone in my life who was very important to me. And that that was a rough one. And I think that's where my distrust of people started to come from. And that's where a lot of anger and anxiety on my part started to come from. Um, I also, I'm sorry to say, got into the worst thing you can do as a Christian girl, which is I started to get very interested in sex. And I'm going to sound very much like a person in my generation when I say this, but when you grow up in purity culture, the way that it's taught to you is rough. It's true. The Bible says to keep yourself pure for marriage. but the way that it's taught makes it seem like it's the worst sin you can possibly commit, especially as a woman. If you have a porn addiction or whatever, there is a group for men. But if you're a woman and you're dealing with any sort of sexual immorality, good luck. Good luck finding someone in the church or a group in the church that you can talk to and support you on that. Like, the shame is drilled into you at a very young age. And like, it was never explicitly said, but it was implied in all of the analogies. Like, you're a piece of tape that's lost its stickiness. What? Like, a piece of tape that's lost its stickiness is useless. What is this analogy? Or you're a flower with all the petals plucked off. Or you're a piece of paper that's got chunks ripped off. And by the time you get to your spouse, like, what's going to be left? And the idea is damaged goods. And so when I started struggling with that, my self-worth was just like, I'm such a garbage person. Like, what girl is struggling with this? This is difficult. I was able to find people to walk alongside me. I was able to find support, but it was very difficult, and a lot of that struggle was done alone. College is where that all kind of came to a head. Once again, I made a wrong assumption. I went into college with my trust issues. I went into college with my sexual morality. I went into college with a slight distrust of God, and I left basically not trusting God at all. Kind of just continuing in my sexual sin, and not trusting anyone, because college is where I thought that I was like gonna meet a bunch of people who are all friends and all love Jesus, and that was not the case. A lot of people were fighting for things that, like, I feel like I don't know that God would be cool with this. College is where I learned that I am not black enough, and that the way my family is set up offends some people because my parents aren't the same color as me. College is where I learned that awful things happen in the world, and some of them God just is not going to fix. And I left with that massive distrust. And now I'm in a place where, if I'm honest with myself and if I'm honest with you guys, I do very little anymore to maintain my relationship with God. I just kind of live like the world, if I'm honest with myself. And it was a slippery slope. It just started with one thing after another, and it started with continuing distrust of God that put me where I'm at right now. And I had health issues this year. COVID hit hard. I was extremely depressed. I was very depressed in high school as well. I never had a plan for suicide or anything. Don't worry about that. I'm not suicidal and never have been. But I was very depressed. I had my first anxiety attack this year, so that was not great. It's been a rough year, but recently I have been able to get my health issues figured out. That has helped tremendously. I started working out again, and I've made a decision because I've realized that, like, none of this stuff is going to fall into my lap. A stronger faith with God is not going to fall into my lap. Becoming a good Christian artist is not going to fall into my lap. Getting fit isn't going to fall into my lap. I have to do something. I have to speak out. I started listening to Christian hip-hop because I felt alone. I felt like nobody was being honest about their struggles. I felt like we just walked into church, slapped a smile on our faces, and pretended everything was cool. I started listening to Christian hip-hop because people were honest. They were honest about how they were feeling, and it made me feel like I was a warrior for God. Christian hip-hop has definitely changed. I don't think this is a place to talk about that, but I want to be different than all Christian hip-hop artists. I want to be different than secular artists. I want to walk with people who are broken. I want to walk with people who are struggling. You can come to me with the same thing every day, and I will be there for you. That's the kind of person that I want to be. And I want my music to reach people who feel like that. I want it to be honest. I want it to be real. I want it to be raw, and I want it to be unashamed. And even though I'm not quite in that place yet, I'm hoping to get there, and I'm hoping to bring people on that journey with me. So that is my testimony. A very imperfect person. I'm not going to go into details. If you really want to know, I'm an honest person. Like I said, I will tell you. But I'm working on it, and I hope to bring people along with me on that journey. So that is my testimony. Thank you for watching.